Learn English with JoJo. Hello and welcome to Learn English with JoJo. This is the third time that I've tried to record this video about gender and the English language. The first time I ended up saying things that weren't very clear and I didn't get my point across very well. And the second time it did go well, and I was in Florida and I don't really know how to use my camera very well, and it kept going in and out of focus like this. So I'm back to you now. That's why it's been a few weeks since my last video. I've been trying and failing and not having very much time, but here we go. The first part of this video is going to be about the singular they, and the second part of this video is going to be about professional titles or job titles in English and how they relate to gender. And then we'll talk about a few other things, maybe the French language at the end. And here we go. So to start, we're going to talk about the singular they. To begin to talk about that, I have to talk about pronouns in general. The pronouns that we use to refer to people are he and she, or they for the plural. So he refers to a man or a boy, she refers to a girl or a woman. The problem is that a lot of people don't fall into one of those two categories, or their sex at birth is not the gender that they identify with or present themselves as. So it gets pretty tricky. It means that people have to guess other people's gender when they're referring to them, and it's pretty bad. For example, I actually identify as gender queer. It's not something I talk about a whole lot with other people, but I actually prefer the singular they and them pronouns. But I'll explain what that is. That's because I don't really feel like a man or a woman. I feel somewhere outside of those two categories, and every time I'm reminded that I look like a man and I have male features, it doesn't feel great to me. So I like to be referred to as they. I don't really tell people to do this because I don't want to be a burden. Maybe after this video I will tell people, or maybe people who know me are watching this and you can refer to me as they. There. So they and them, when I refer to JoJo, we'll say I have a friend JoJo, even though my name is JoJo, and I don't know their gender. See what I did there? I said I don't know their gender, even though normally I would say his or her gender. There is a more simple way of doing that, so you don't have to say his or her and say that there is a gender binary, that there are only two genders. So I would say, I met this great person, JoJo. They like to make videos on YouTube. And it totally makes sense. Sometimes it's a little bit difficult if you are a native English speaker, or if you learn English in the classroom, that they is supposed to be plural, but it doesn't actually change that much. You can use context clues just like we use context clues for homophones. It's totally fine. It's just something to get used to a little bit. We use plural verbs with they and them. You can actually change your gender on Facebook to be they and them, your pronouns that you are referring to, and it will say they updated their profile picture. And it's totally fine. It makes sense, I assure you. If you have questions about it, leave them in the comments and I will point you to some articles about they and them, or I will try to answer the questions myself. So, that being said, hopefully you understand that. Now we're going to go on to titles in English, job titles. So, the example I'm going to start with is actor and actress. And this is the same thing in French, acteur et actrice. I'm pretty sure it comes from French, as a lot of words in English do. A lot of actors and actresses just like to be referred to as actor. A lot of women actors want to be called actors, because making that difference between a man and a woman actor and actress every time that they have to explain what they do, or every time that they have to apply for a job, just means that right away someone is thinking, oh, they are a woman. It's just a distinction that doesn't really need to exist anymore. It's something that comes from Old English and Middle English and now has evolved to be something that we use today, but less and less. You will hear fewer and fewer people say actress as time goes on, I bet. But people still say actor and actress, just letting you know. But there are some job titles that we don't distinguish between men and women anymore. I'll give you a few examples. Waiter and waitress was how people always said the people who bring you your food at restaurants and who you order food from. They used to always be waiter and waitress, and now more and more people just say server. In the restaurant industry, we just say server. I used to work in restaurants. Because then you don't have to make that distinction between waiter and waitress. It's just bad. Another one, there used to be doctor and doctoress, but that was in the 1500s to the 1800s. No one says doctoress today. And you can see why they don't want to make that distinction, because you don't want to make people associate a certain job, especially a very good job like being a doctor, with a certain gender. You don't want to be, I don't know how to explain it. Another thing related to that is nurses. A lot of people, since most of nurses are women, say when there's a male nurse, they say male nurse instead of just calling everyone a nurse. They feel like they have to make that distinction because I don't really know why. Another one is steward and stewardess on an airplane. The people who bring your food on an airplane, they are actually just called flight attendants now. No one says steward and stewardess because you don't need to differentiate between man and woman, especially when that's not the only two genders. Another one is policeman and policewoman. I don't know why. Now we just say police officer because it's weird to always have to make that distinction. And besides just doctor and doctoress, there used to be even more distinctions between job titles for men and women. So I am going to read you a list of a few of my favorite ones. Favorite meaning, I don't know, the ones that were most interesting to me. I don't like that there was this difference. But if you are interested, I will leave the article that I found this from. It was a scholarly article. There are even more and ones that are very confusing. Anyway, there were friendess, poetess or poetress, priestess, which still is used today mostly in shows like Game of Thrones to show like women priests. I don't know. And then there were danceress, singeress, sinneress, and neighboress. Those are just some of my favorites. Don't use those. Don't use those. They're not real. No one says that today. I was just giving you some historical context to say that those distinctions have been going away. There is a trend, and I think we will see that more and more, which leads me to my next point. I was wondering, because most of my viewers are native French speakers, is that something that's happening in French? Is there the same discussion between acteur et actrice, especially if you are in that domain, if you are an actor? Please let me know if that is a debate that you've been having, if you've heard about that. That's really interesting to me, and I'd like to know. One other thing I wanted to note was that when you refer to someone who is from Latin America, normally in Spanish you say Latino or Latina, because like in French there are masculine and feminine endings depending on whether someone is a man or a woman. So there's way more gendered stuff to be talked about in Romance languages. But now people say Latinx. Not everyone says it like this, but they say Latinx so that they don't have to refer to if you are a man or a woman, because you might be outside of those two categories, or you might not want to just give someone your gender when you're talking about yourself because it's just not relevant. So there are ways to do that. I would like to know if there is anything like that in the French language, because that's the language I speak. If there are any ways to get around gender in French, I'd really like to know. For example, if I want to say I am strong, I usually say je suis fort instead of saying je suis forte, because forte with the T is the feminine, and even though I don't think of myself as masculine, I have to pick one because that's how French works. So yeah, do you have any suggestions for that? I actually met someone in France who only wanted to speak English to me, even though French was their native language, because they didn't like having to describe themselves in French, since English is a genderless language for the most part, besides the things that I talked about just now in this video. And I found that really interesting. And yeah, so if you are genderqueer and you speak a Romance language, please let me know what you think. I'm really interested in starting a conversation about this. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you learned something. I hope you start to think about gender a little bit more and how it plays a part in your daily life, because we use language all the time. So you're constantly having to make these differences between men and women when really there shouldn't be any differences, and men and women isn't the only categories. Anyway, that's it. I hope you have a great day. The next video will probably be in French. I'm hoping to do a video in English, and then a video in French, and then a video in English, and then a video in French, because that's what I find the most interesting. Bye. That is it for today. I'm going to show you where I am, because it's quite beautiful. Look at that, right on the beach. It's amazing. I hope you have a great day. My mom is down there. That's my mom. Okay, have a great day. Bye.